Okay guys, I'm going to show you how I take care of the quarter panels in the rear of the car on my Z28. This being a track car, I treat it as such. It doesn't get cleaned as much as I wished it would, so there's a lot of baked in contaminants that I'll show you in a second. But for starters, what I do is it hasn't had a good detail in a long time because I haven't had access to water until recently. So what I did right now is I've been washing it with the wheel soap, giving it a good thorough scrub down. This fender here was heavily covered in rubber marks and brake dust, etc. So I've gotten all that off. I'm gonna hose it down. After I hose it down, rinse all the soap, I'm going to apply the plum wheel cleaner to this particular area here, and I'll show you how to get the baked in stuff out of the car. And I've got it all hosed off now. You can see right off the bat that there's some baked in stuff that you can't actually see. So I've got a clay bar at my disposal, but what I'm going to try first, especially in this area down here, I don't know if you can see that. Here's a good example. Here's a good example. Living up north for a couple years, I drive the car as much as I can, and it's not really rust, but what it is a piece or a bit of the brakes has come off the car and embedded itself, and then that piece started to rust, but I can get that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wheel cleaner. I'm just going to lightly mist it. Kind of concentrate in there in that area where the pockets will stay. I'm going to get up here a little bit. I'm going to try not to cover the car, but either way. Down here it's going to get really nasty. There's one right there. The car's never been clayed before, so it's going to need a clay bar almost definitely, but I can take a lot of this out with the wheel cleaner, and we'll come back whenever it starts to activate. Alright, I gave it a little time to set up, and you can see it's trying to bleed that stuff off pretty well, actually. May or may not need a clay bar. We'll see after I get done washing the whole car and give it a final wipe down and see how I like it. For now, it's doing a good job. You can see the badge catches a lot of junk and it's bleeding out of there, down to my little rust speckle. So I have I kind of use it as a wheel brush. I tend not to use it on paint because it's a wheel brush, but down here, even if I was going to polish out any imperfections, that's going to be hard to get to with a polisher anyway, so I kind of do it at will. My bucket over here has the Brute Wheel soap in it, so I'm going to kind of agitate this a little bit. You can see didn't quite get it all out, unfortunately. It did pretty well on this stuff here. That bigger spot is gonna need another application. Some of this other stuff will too, but for the most part you can see that this is doing a pretty good job of bleeding out all this stuff. I highly advise to, if you have access to maintain your car, especially if you're tracking hard, to maintain it a little better than I do. But like I said, I was living in an apartment for 3 years. I didn't have access to water. It was kind of a wash and go at the car wash. So as long as you take a little better care of it, then you shouldn't have this problem after the track day. Come and immediately rinse it off and shine it up a little bit, and you shouldn't have this stuff get baked on as heavily as I have. And this isn't even the worst part. The worst part is the back of the car for sure, as it is on most vehicles. So we'll get to that later. Alright, I just watched the back of the car and you'll see what I was talking about. This is all bonded in. Back of the car always gets it the worst. I noticed, especially if you have a track day in the rain. I did one over the summer and the back end was covered. I was picking up, we all were picking up everybody's brake dust off the track in the spray. So the back of the car gets covered, and if you don't get after it right away, it gets this bad. So I'm going to do an application here as well, try to pick up as much as I can, just with the chemical. Alright, gave the product a little dwell time here. You can see how bad it is. Just trying to attack all that junk that was on the back of the car. Bleeding it off. I'll give it a scrub down and we'll get it out of there. A couple of the other problem areas, you know, rear fender, it's getting that stuff out. Some of this stuff here, never mind all that, that's all rock chips. I did have one of those little rust specks here, so I applied just right there. And came over and got the other side as well. This side gets beat up a little bit. Getting that stuff out of there. Common sense warning, you know, this, yes, it's gonna get asked. This is stripping off. You can see there's not really any beating happening on the hood, just a few water drops. This is gonna strip your wax, but that's okay. You know, common sense. I'm using a wheel scrub and a wheel cleaner on the paint, so it is gonna remove your wax 99% of the time. So I'll have to reapply after this. Also, unfortunately, I ran out of product, so I didn't get the whole car done. So that's kind of a wrap for this. I'll have to come back and get the rest of it some other day when I get more product. So, you know, I would say 80% clean. We'll scrub all this off and get it out of the way and reapply wax over what's left, and I'll just have to clay bar it some other day, get the last remaining bits out of it. But for now, it needed a wash anyway. I had tire marks all over the car, rubber fling off, and bugs, all kinds of stuff, and just general road grime. As soon as we got here, it was raining for 3 straight days, and just never really had time to clean it up before or after my last track day in Gingerman. So it's as good as it's going to be right now. Unfortunately, I'd like to do it all, you know, go all the way on it tonight, but this is as good as it's going to get. But otherwise, I would say, you know, I made it a good 10-footer car. When somebody gets real close to it, they'll notice that I didn't get everything. Here's a few specks here that didn't come out. That needs clay bar to suck that out of the paint. But otherwise, you know, 80% removal of the junk. I can reapply a coat of sealant over it, and I'll come back and get it another day when I have more product. I didn't realize I was that low until after I started, so it was kind of too late. Okay, just to wrap this up, where I'm at now is dried the car, rinsed it off and dried it. wet microfiber towel with some hydrate sprayed in it, dried it off a little easier. I have an electric leaf blower to get all the major water off. So I've got a coat of AMMO skin, trying to sit up a little bit. Losing daylight out here, so it's about to get extremely humid for the nighttime, which means I'm kind of in a time crunch. So going as quickly as I can, and I'm trying to let it sit up as long as I can. Thought process here is I'm on the vertical panels where you would normally see your heavier brake dust come back, because I do have a track day in a couple of weeks, so I'm trying to avoid re-contaminating the areas that I just cleaned, or at least minimizing it. Not the doors or anything. I'm just kind of lightly coating the doors, rear quarters, trunk lid, spoiler. I don't know if you can see it on there. You can see just that discoloration. That's the sealant coming to life. And I'm fortunate enough, I guess you could say, I live in a town with a bunch of refineries. So I am a firm believer in the industrial fallout, whether it's a myth to some people or not. So I am a believer in that your paint does get contaminated in whatever they're releasing, because I have lived here most of my life, and I see the crap that gets dumped out of there sometimes, first-hand experience. So what I'm trying to do is, like I said, I didn't get a full decontaminate today, so I'm trying to minimize what'll be there next time when I finally have some product restocked and I can do a full-on decon with a clay bar. So the thought process is, what little good that I did do today, put sealant over those areas with my little applicator, and you can see here that some of those, a lot of them are gone, but some of them stuck around that they needed to be clay barred, or at least have another application. So I don't know if this is how that works, because I'm not a chemical engineer by any means. But thought process is kind of cover my tracks, and maybe it'll be a little less work the next time that I have more product in stock. So for now, that's a wrap. Before I lose all of my sunlight, I'm going to try to get all this off before the humidity sets in, and basically the whole car will turn to water for the evening. But otherwise, I would say at a minimum I turned the car into about a 10-footer or so. So looks good for now. All right, till next time.